So recently 343 put out a blog discussing their anti-cheat named Arbiter and their strategy for combating cheaters in Halo Infinite. And before we get into it, I just want to say that I do approve of 343 discussing this type of stuff with the community. There may have been a lot of dumb things said within this blog, and we will criticize those things, but at the end of the day, it is better than not saying anything at all and leaving the community in the dark. Some people might argue that this update was just a waste of time and they shouldn't have said anything at all, but I disagree. I am all for communication. The more communication, the better, even if the things they are telling us aren't the greatest. So with that being said, let's get into this. There were a lot of dumb things said in this blog, but I want to focus in on one issue in particular because I believe it deserves a video of its own, and that would be the removal of red reticle for Halo Infinite on PC. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the term red reticle, it refers to a player's reticle turning red when it's placed on an enemy. And for the reticle to turn red, you have to be within a certain range. If you're too far away, then it won't turn red. Now, this has been a thing in Halo since Halo CE, which released in 2001, 20 years ago. Now, 343 has made the decision to remove this feature for Halo Infinite on PC to help combat cheating. And they cite trigger bots as being the most common type of cheat that would utilize something like red reticle. And there has been an outcry from the community to restore red reticle for Halo Infinite on PC. But although 343 are aware of these complaints regarding the removal of red reticle, they double down and claim that they still believe this is the right decision for the health of the game as it stands right now. Well, first of all, since when does 343 care about the health of their game? Like, what? This is new. And from all the things I've seen 343 say regarding the removal of red reticle, it really seems like they don't think it's that big of a deal. It seems like their attitude is, oh, it's just a visual thing. It doesn't affect your aim assist or anything like that. Your reticle just doesn't turn red when it's over an enemy player. No big deal. Listen, here's the thing. I know it is mostly a visual thing. I get that. But if you can't see how removing a feature like red reticle might affect somebody's aim after it being in Halo for 20 years. Some people played Halo for 20 years with red reticle, and then all of a sudden it's removed. If you don't see how that might fuck somebody's aim up, then you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. Again, I understand that it doesn't affect aim assist or anything like that, but it is just really fucking weird placing your reticle on an enemy and it not turning red when it used to in every other Halo game. That can absolutely negatively impact someone's ability to aim. I mean, in Counter-Strike and Valorant, some people will claim that their aim isn't as good when they switch to a new reticle. Little things like that can impact your aim. So I think red reticle is something 343 should absolutely reinstate immediately. It has been a thing in Halo since 2001, 20 fucking years, and they just remove it like it's not that big of a deal. And I don't think they even have a good enough reason to justify its removal. I think their reasoning behind it is actually fucking terrible. So 343 says removing red reticle on PC reduces the ease of creating some homemade cheats, with trigger bots being the most common of the bunch. Rather than allowing players to create their own if pixel X turns red then fire cheat, we opted to raise the barrier and therefore reduce the number of cheats people can trivially develop. We've heard the calls for it to be reinstated because there are cheaters in the game anyways, but other cheats existing does not mean we should lower our guard in other areas. We'll continue to keep an eye on this, but we still believe this is the right decision for the health of the game as it stands right now. So it seems like trigger botting is the main form of cheating that they are trying to combat here by removing red reticle on PC. And for those of you who don't know what a trigger bot is, basically it will automatically fire your weapon when the crosshair is placed over an enemy. And this is something people can do even without red reticle. Trigger bots have been used in games like Valorant or Counter-Strike, and in those games your reticle does not change colors when placed on an enemy. So understand, even with the removal of red reticle, something that has been in Halo for 20 years, trigger botting is still possible. Now let's assume that if red reticle were in the game, it would be easier for players to create their own trigger bots. And I don't know if that actually does make it any easier. It might just be easy regardless to create a trigger bot. But let's just say that it would be easier for players to do if red reticle were in the game. If that were the case, does that really justify removing something as fundamental as red reticle? Like, we don't even know how big of an issue trigger botting would or wouldn't be in Halo Infinite if red reticle were in the game. Like, how common would the trigger bots be? How common are they now? Because you can still use a trigger bot without red reticle. And how effective is a trigger bot in Halo anyway? Like, when I think of players trigger botting in Counter-Strike or Valorant, games with really quick TTKs, like one shot to the head will get you the kill in many cases, and you can one shot if you're using an op. So trigger bots in those games I can see giving a player a huge advantage, because as soon as you place your crosshair on the enemy, your gun will automatically shoot for you. And think about if you're just holding an angle and you have your crosshair placed at head level waiting for an enemy to turn the corner. Well, as soon as that player moves out and their head moves in front of your crosshair, if you're using a trigger bot, your gun will automatically shoot for you and you get the kill. So I see how much of an advantage you would gain by using a trigger bot in a game like Valorant or Counter-Strike, where it has a really fast time to kill. But in Halo, I don't really see a trigger bot offering much of an advantage at all. Like, honestly, I kind of see it as a disadvantage. Like, just think about it. Halo has a longer time to kill, and with many weapons you have to track the enemy you are shooting at. So you still have to aim. The trigger bot doesn't aim for you. You still have to keep that reticle steady on the player you're shooting at. Also, many weapons in Halo are not hit scan weapons. Some of them are projectile based weapons. So just because your reticle is on the enemy when you shoot doesn't mean that shot is going to hit. And also, there are times where you wouldn't want your gun to shoot the second your reticle turns red. Like, for example, if you're using a sniper rifle, if you're going for a headshot, you don't want to shoot until that reticle is on the enemy's head. But if you were using a trigger bot and had red reticle, if your reticle touches the enemy's body and turns red, well, then it would automatically shoot for you. You might not want it to shoot right away. You want to get that reticle to the head before it shoots. So how I see it, a trigger bot wouldn't even offer that much of an advantage in a game like Halo. And 343 says that we've heard the calls for it to be reinstated because there are cheaters in the game anyways, but other cheats existing does not mean we should lower our guard in other areas. And to many people that might sound reasonable, but it's because of how they word it. Like, another way to think about it is this. Many players are already wall hacking and aimbotting, and the cheating is rampant, And because of that, people who are playing the game legit are already at a disadvantage, so we shouldn't make things worse by removing red reticle, which has been in Halo since the very fucking beginning. Yeah, how about we look at it like that? Players are already getting cheated, so let's not make it worse for them by taking away their red reticle. And you know, speaking of aimbotting, you know something that gives aimbotters a huge advantage? One-shot weapons like the sniper rifle and the shock rifle. So I guess we should just remove those, right? Because the aimbotters will be at even more of an advantage with these one-shot weapons, so we should remove them, right? No, you shouldn't. Your game just needs to have an anti-cheat that doesn't suck ass. Now, something else I want to discuss regarding the removal of red reticle, which doesn't have anything to do with cheating, and that is that although red reticle is removed for Halo Infinite on PC, console players do still get red reticle. And because of this, it can actually give console players an advantage in some situations. Because something I've noticed about these Halo Infinite maps is there are a decent amount of sight lines where you will be shooting through foliage, through trees, grass, plants. Like on a map like Fragmentation in BTB, there are tons of trees, or even a map like Streets. There are many spots on streets where foliage will get in the way and block sight lines. Now, if you're playing on console with red reticle, and you have your reticle placed on the enemy player, your reticle will turn red through the foliage. So if you're in a gunfight with an enemy player and there's a tree in the way blocking the sight line, you will know when your reticle is on the enemy player because it will turn red through the tree, unless you are out of red reticle range. But on PC, you don't have that. You don't know when your reticle is on that player because you don't have any red reticle, and there's foliage blocking the sight line, so you can't really see the player very well. Now, yeah, the enemy's name will still appear when you look at them, but that's not the same thing as your reticle actually turning red. So it's much easier for a console player to gauge whether or not their reticle is on the player or not when they have some kind of plant or tree obstructing their view. Now, some of you might feel that is a really small advantage and it doesn't have that much of an effect. And I mean, if we were talking about the older Halo games, I might agree. But there are plenty of sight lines in Halo Infinite where there is some type of foliage obstructing your view. So this advantage that console players have with red reticle is a little more significant on these maps in Infinite. And with that, we're going to leave it there. I think I've said everything I need to say regarding the removal, the idiotic removal of red reticle in Halo Infinite. I absolutely feel that 343 should reinstate red reticle for Halo Infinite on PC immediately. Again, I don't see much justification in removing it at all. I mean, we just broke everything down. Yeah, their reasoning for this is not a very good one. Cheaters are already running rampant in this game, so let's not make it harder for the legit players by removing red reticle. I haven't really seen many people trigger botting, even though you can still trigger bot without red reticle. You don't need a red reticle for a player to be able to trigger bot. And hey, maybe people are trigger botting in Halo Infinite, and I just didn't notice because it doesn't really give you that much of an advantage. And we don't even know how many people would even trigger bot if red reticle were a thing. It might be insignificant. And again, like I said, I don't think trigger botting would even be that effective in a game like Halo. Removing red reticle for Halo Infinite on PC, it's up there as one of the most illogical decisions 343 has ever made. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out, everybody.